All right, guys, welcome back to our second part of our talk about student loans. And today we're going to shift gears a little bit and talk more about, all right, I'm here. I've already made the decision to go into student debt. What do I do now?
Okay, so we are now in the position of we're paying off student loans. Mm-hmm. What do we do? And right off the bat, I think the thing that I would want you to know as the individual watching this is that paying off student loans or being in a situation where you have student loans, I know it's not a fun place to be. And we are not blaming you for having made a huge mistake in your life or whatever. Like, that's not at all where this is coming from. There's no judgment here because that's the position I was in. That's the position we were in when we got married. And so we know it's a hard place to start, but we also know now that we're past it, that being free of it is an incredible place to be. Mm-hmm. And it gives you a tremendous amount of freedom in life.
It does.
And so the hope in this conversation is that you move towards freedom and away from feeling the guilt or victimization or whatever you have the feelings towards student loans and where you're at right now.
Right. So I think when we're going into, okay, I've got this debt, what do I do now? How do I pay it down? And if I could boil it down to one word, I would just say fast. Like the key to success in your student loan repayment is just doing it fast. Yep. So Samson, let's talk about your student loan.
Yeah.
Okay. So how much did you initially borrow?
So it was about $75,000. Okay. Yeah, I think it was about $75,000, including my undergrad and my graduate degree. I had a master's. And so all of that together was about $75,000. And then I had consolidated.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So 5 years later is when Samson and I got married, right after you graduated. Yep. And at what point, or 5 years after you took out that initial loan of $75,000, how much did you owe?
$92,000.
$92,000. So it went from 75 to 92,000 in 5 years. How many payments did you miss?
None.
Were you late on your payments?
Never late.
So how much were your monthly payments?
Yeah, so my monthly payments when I first graduated, so I think, quick rehash of how, I feel like I'm all this pressure now. A rehash of kind of how we got there from 75 to 92 really is when I consolidated, a lot of the interest got lumped up into the principal of the loan now. And so that shot up the loan amount immediately. And then, I had the option of paying like $1,000 a month. I think that was my initial payment. And I was like, oh, I just graduated. I just got my first job. There's no way I can afford
Making 30 something.
Yeah. And so I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to make this. And I found out the student loan people were nice enough to offer an income contingent plan. I thought they were really sweet doing this.
So nice. Lenders are known for being nice.
That's right. Mm-hmm. And so I called them. They were like, yeah, absolutely, you can do this. I had to fill out some paperwork. And so then basically my monthly payment from $900 to like $300. And I thought it was the greatest thing in the world. And so that I just faithfully paid that $300 something dollars a month. And I thought I was making great traction. And the reality is I was never even touching the interest on my student loan every year.
Yeah, let alone the principal.
Yeah, every year that loan was actually growing even though I was making payments. So actually in 5 years of faithfully making payments, it
went from 75 to 92.
Yep.
I want you guys to think about this because there's a real frame of mind. Okay, I'm making the minimum monthly payment, so I'm still making some traction, just not as much as I should. That is wrong. You are actually going further into debt by making the minimum payment every month, and you will never pay off your student loans making a minimum monthly payment.
Yep.
So I don't think we can put enough emphasis on that because, I mean, I feel like that alone is so deceptive, even to offer that as an option. So when are you considered delinquent? Because after you're considered delinquent, there's a bunch more fees that get added on and late fees, and you're going to be ending paying so much more if you ever miss a payment. So if you go 90 days without making a payment, you are considered delinquent. And there's a new law that they will actually slide into your DMs. I think we talked about that a little bit last time.
Yeah.
They will come after you and they will make your life really, really miserable after 90 days.
And now they could do it on social media.
Yeah.
They can make your life miserable on social media.
Yay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And so, as you're thinking about how to pay this debt off, there's a difference between forbearance and deferment. So what is that difference?
So your lender, you might think that they're really, really nice. You call them up and you're like, hey, I'm not able to make this month's payment. And they're like, oh, you know what? No problem. We'll go ahead and forbear. And that means you don't have to make a payment this month, except for you're still being charged interest for that month. So even though you're not making a payment, your interest is still accruing.
Yeah.
So never, ever, ever say yes to that. Even if you can't miss that payment, what they're doing is they're making more money off of you by forbearing. And so that's never a favor that they're doing for you. They actually desire that from you.
Yeah.
So say you call them up and they offer that is not a good thing. Like, run.
Yeah. And because the reason that is, and the reason they're so willing to give you forbearance and let you do lower payments, is because they make their money not on the principal, but they make their money on the interest, right? And so that's how they're collecting on this debt. They want you to be in interest. They want you to be making payments for as long as possible.
What? Those big, nice corporate lenders that are so friendly?
Yes.
Making money off of me? Oh.
And so that is a big thing to keep in mind, is that they're not always looking out for your best interest. When you call them and you're asking for an extension or whatever you think you're asking for, that if they're willing to work with you, most likely it's because it is to their advantage.
So Samson, here we are 10 years later. If you could go back and talk to yourself right after graduation and they offered you this income contingent plan, would you do that again?
No, but I don't know if I could do anything different, right? And I think that was one of the initial challenges, is that I had no idea that it was going to be so expensive right off the bat. And so, yeah, I probably would at that point try to make the biggest payment I could, but I'm not even sure if I could have at that point in life.
So this is where we go back to that last video where we talk about school selection and how much you're going to make. You really do need to consider how much your monthly student loan payment is going to be, and figure that into your income, your monthly income of what that's projected to be when you graduate, because that really is impossible to make $1,000 payment, working for a nonprofit right out the bat, right out the door of school. Yeah. It's really impossible.
Yeah. I mean, to me, that's a mortgage payment. And that's what most people are getting tied to when it comes to student loan. And so I don't know. I just want to speak to the heart of this too, because I think if you're out there and you're feeling like, man, I feel like, I have the wool, over me, and I feel kind of like I've been taken advantage of. I don't want you to live in that, sense of victimhood, or like that's who you are or whatever. I don't want you to live there, but I do want you to consider, some of this was because of, policies that were meant to help were actually putting you in poor situations, right? And sometimes that's why I think it's important to realize that you can't always rely on other people to help you, right? You're kind of in this situation on your own. And it's only when you have a sense of agency, like I can do this, that I can work myself out of this, that you're able to do this on your own. And it takes a lot of grit, it takes a lot of sacrifice to get there. And I think for me, I didn't even have a realization of it until I married you, babe. Like, honestly, I had no idea that student loans were a bad thing. I've heard people say, like, student loans are good loans.
And then here comes hope.
Yeah, and then here
what
comes
are we
hope.
doing with our lives?
And rightfully so, she had a sense of urgency about it that I never had when it came to student loans. And so I hope that watching this, that you gain and you gather a sense of urgency, that you don't feel like you're being attacked on this, that you're actually feeling like, oh man, this is urgent. I got to take care of this, because you don't know what the future holds. And the goal here is to get out of this hole, is to get out of this pit so that you can move forward. And I think that's a big key in this.
Right.
In fact, I just want to say this. I'm, producer Christian, who's behind the camera.
Christian.
I was extremely proud of him, because I was asking him the progress that he and his wife have made And one of the big things that they did is they threw their stimulus money at the student loans. And so they're
so smart.
They're choosing to live on much less than they make to make a huge progress. And in the season when they're in deferment, they're still paying off debt, which is stinking awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. And then one more thing about whenever you graduate, how to go through the process of paying down these loans. I think a lot of people graduate, they've got their cap and their gown, and they're like, all right, I'm making big money. Now I can spend big money. And so I think one of the keys to paying off your student loans aggressively is not adjusting your lifestyle after graduation. Yeah. You still want to live like a poor college student because guess what? You are still poor. Nothing has changed. You still owe that much money to the bank and nothing has changed. You might be having more of an income to throw at your student loans, but we don't want you to go out, buy a new car, reward yourself because you've worked so hard. That might be true, but it's not time to reap those benefits just yet because you have a lot of work to do.
Yeah. And just think about the huge advantage that you have right now. If you're kind of single and you're post-college, the huge advantage that you have is that you don't have kids. You don't have a lot of, dependence in your life. And so you really have a lot of independence.
A lot of wiggle room.
This is a season to get as many roommates as possible, right? To work extra jobs because you have extra time. Right now is not the time to rest, right? It's not like, oh man, college was so hard. Now I finally get to have my weekends back and rest. Right now is not that time.
Still
right?
hustle.
It's time to hustle, right? It's time to get on it because you know what? Real life just started.
So you will be getting a billing statement, and if you don't receive it, it's a good idea to go ahead and make sure that they have your correct information, because if you've moved in the last 2 years and they're not going to know where to send these things, so you really have to go and update your information to make sure that you're getting the correct information from your lender. Because if you do go delinquent, then that's going to add additional fees to your account. So
that's right.
Don't want to do that.
Yeah, I learned this the hard way actually very recently through AT&T. My favorite
AT&T. We love it.
My favorite people, AT&T. But very recently, we moved houses, and so we started internet in our new house. And for whatever reason, the way that it was set up, they didn't send us a bill. They never mailed us a bill. And then I got a notification was it on your phone?
Yeah.
There's a notification on Hope's phone.
You know those sketchy looking text messages that come through? You're like, I'm not going to click on that link.
Yeah.
It kind of looked like that. It's from an 800 or 866 number.
Yeah. And it was like, you need to pay your bill right now or you're going to cancel your internet or something like that. It was very sketchy sounding. I was like, that's really weird. And I was like, I've never received a bill. We've been living in this house for, almost 2 months now. I'm still waiting on my bill. I hadn't even thought about it because for whatever reason, we had all these other stuff we were changing over.
But we were still paying our cell phone bill.
We're still paying our cell phone bill. It was automated, right? So I assumed.
And we were getting our cell phone bill here at the house.
Yes.
And so we're like, what?
So I called AT&T and I'm like, what's going on? And so for whatever reason, when they created our account for the new house, they did not combine it with our previous account, and they created a brand new account that we never knew about, and a completely different account numbers, all this kind of stuff. And even though it was their fault, guess what? We still had to pay that bill. Now, I have a very, grinded out kind of wife.
Hostile is the word he's looking for.
And she will argue with somebody over the phone, okay? And so she somehow got the late payment thing taken off because we've never missed a payment and all this kind of stuff. But however, that still didn't mean that we, because it was their fault, we don't owe anything. We still have to pay what we owed.
But we did think it was a scam, which brings us to our next point. There are a lot of really good scammers out there. And right now, one of the more popular kinds that are trending is specifically targeting student loan borrowers. You'll get a phone call here and there or a text message that says, hey, through this new CARES Act program Biden has put in place, or the new Biden federal aid program for student loans, we just need your personal information. Those are all scams. There has been no new Biden program that's been put into effect since he's become the president. So if anybody calls you wanting personal information regarding your student loans or some new opportunity that's come about with your student loans, please do not give any information to them because that is a hoax.
Yes. Don't get ripped off.
Don't do that. Don't.
Yeah.
These scammers are getting better and better.
They are. The one good thing that I have happened to me, though, is for some reason, every time I get one of those scammy text messages, it's always addressed to Pam. I don't know who Pam is.
We've been laughing about this for years because she gets so many messages to Samson.
They're like, Pam, do you want to lose 50 pounds? Pam, do you want a discount on this blah, blah, blah? I'm like,
Pam, did you know this celebrity was caught holding hands with this celebrity? Like, it's the most obscure stuff.
yeah. And I'm like, I don't know.
Pam signs up for everything. Yeah, and she gives Samson's number out.
I guess so. There's a lady named Pam who's really mad at me, puts my phone number in all of the scam things. Okay. Mm-hmm. But don't get scammed. All right. Moral of the story. But there is some strategies that you can use right now to get ahead. One, it's a really simple strategy, is double your payment.
Mm-hmm. Yes, which is great if you have lots of money. But that goes back to not adjusting your lifestyle, which I think this is really possible if you don't make any adjustments to your lifestyle post-grad. So if you're still like eating ramen, rice and beans, and you don't inflate your budget for eating out or what have you, this really is possible. Is it fun? No, we did it for 22 months and it wasn't fun, but it is possible. Yeah.
And I would say this, one of the greatest things that you could do, and I know I want to be careful how I say this, but if you have parents that are wanting you to come back home after college and they're willing to let you live there for free, take advantage of that, especially if you have student loans, right? Because you can use a season of your life right there when you're still coming back home and living with your parents after college to make a great head start. Because if you don't have rent due or you don't have a mortgage payment, guess what? You can make double payments, right? You can make significant chunks of payments in your student loans. Now, what you don't want, and this is, I'm going to borrow.
And also food.
And food. Oh my gosh.
How we did that in 22 months is we ate at Samson's parents' house. We had so much Indian food in that 22 months, I'm telling you.
Yes.
We were over there like every other day.
We still eat that much Indian food right now. So maybe we still take advantage of that.
I know, maybe we do.
But what I would say is to borrow from Dave Ramsey a little bit, he always says, what you want living with your parents, you want that to be a safety net, not a hammock, right? That you don't want that to be the thing that sucks away the motivation of your life. And so what I would do is I would set an end date. I think it's a good tool to use, right? To borrow from, Stephen Covey, have your end in mind. What is the end goal of this? Set an end date for yourself. Say, hey, I'm going to live with my parents for the first year out of college. So for the first year, and set a date, May 31st, 2024, right? That's the day I'm going to move out. Set that day for yourself to have that conversation with your parents and use that entire first year or first 2 years, whatever that looks like for you, to pay off as much as you can. Take advantage of those things. If you have parents that are willing to do that, take advantage of that. Don't feel like you're so ready to be independent. You got to get out of that coop, get out of the cage. But at the end of the day, also don't turn that into a hammock. Right. Don't take advantage of that graciousness, the willingness of your parents to take you back in. And don't let that be a thing that sucks the motivation out of your life.
Let me tell you just preemptively what your temptation is going to be, okay? Because I was post grad at 1.2, and I just I know where my mind was. You're going to be thinking to yourself, okay, I'm moving into my parents' house. That means I'm saving X amount of dollars. That means that I can afford to purchase X amount in a car or X amount in this because I'm saving so much money per month. And you're going to go through those thoughts and those processes, and you're going to have those temptations. And if you don't have, like Samson said, that end goal in mind, then you will succumb to those temptations. Yeah. So you really do have to just be super aggressive and have a lot of boundaries within yourself. And that's a good part of growing up, is you get to fail on some small stages.
Yeah. And I'll be willing to bet that if you're the kind of person who's going to sit and watch a video like this on how to pay off debt and get ahead, most likely you're probably not going to be the one that turns the safety net into the hammock, right? And so, but just be mindful of things that Hope just said, right? That you're not taking advantage of those situations and buying the extra clothes or getting an extra car payment now because you think you need a new stuff to keep up with all your other friends that are graduating. You don't need to keep up with anybody. In fact, once again, to borrow a Dave Ramsey statement, right? If you live like no one else right now, later in life, you can live and give like no one else. And having lived that out, I agree. I think that's the best place to be.
That's our desire for you.
So that's it. Hopefully that was helpful to you in some way. Leave a comment below. Let us know if there's any part of this stuff that you want to know more about, or if there's some more of this conversation you want us to have. And we love to hear from you.
Thanks for watching. Thanks so much for watching that video with us, guys. We really appreciate you, and we want to be here for a resource for you. So please feel free to reach out with any questions that you might have.
Also, be sure to like and subscribe and hit that little notification bell so you can stay up to date.